Glad you can make it today. We are broadcasting live from the Pioneer Plaza in the ThinkTech studios in downtown Honolulu. Business in Hawaii is a stories about business in Hawaii, positive ones about people who have made it work here. And despite all the challenges that we hear about, we've got some success stories. We are streaming live on livestream.com every Thursday at 2 o'clock. So please join us and put that on your calendar. Today, we have the founder and the current operating officer of Super Geeks. They've been around for quite some time. They have consistently been successful. And I want to welcome James Kerr and Tim Caminos. Welcome.
Hi, Reg. Thanks for having us.
So now, Jim, you just got off the plane.
I did, yeah. Super Geek 1.
Oh,
right, like Air Force 1, Super Geek 1.
See, now that's success.
Well, someone's got to pay for the fuel.
Well, but you just got off the plane. You just
did.
dodged right over here to the studio, and now
did.
you're going live.
Had a nice tailwind.
Good, good, good. Well, and you flew in from the mainland?
I was in LA, literally 30 minutes ago.
All right. And so you're still involved, you're still taking care of Super Geeks, got a watchful eye over it, or?
Yeah, so most people probably don't know the backstory. The backstory is Tim made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and has ended up acquiring Super Geeks Hawaii.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, congratulations to both of us. And so my being in LA was for a different reason, but yes, my responsibilities now include making that transition nice and smooth as Tim builds Super Geeks 2.0.
Very good. Now Super Geeks got its start here locally, did it not? Or?
It did, yeah. I started it
I remember.
in my house, right behind Hawaii Baptist Academy. I had a 2-bedroom home. I was single at the time. And I just started fixing computers. And at that time, I charged $15 per hour. Of course, I couldn't fix it. So I had to go out and hire people who were smarter than I to do it. And little by little, and at that time, you might remember, this was back in 1998 or so, computers, and they still are frustrating devices today, but especially back then, no one really knew what to do. They just wanted to have that problem solved.
Well, I remember I started my firm just about that time, and you came in and we worked together, and you helped us understand those challenges.
I remember that. In fact, I think we inherited like a conference table from you at one point. You ended up moving to another. Do you remember that?
I do.
We got that conference table, and that was such a level up for us that we had a real table to work on.
So we've had a lot of opportunity over the years to work together, and I've seen Super Geeks grow and go to multiple locations, and you've just had a super run on this.
Yeah, first of all, I love technology. Secondly, I enjoy helping people. And the third element, I think timing was right. So all those things kind of came together.
Very good.
But it was a long slog. So we started in that 2-bedroom home, and people would come to the home and drop off computers, and the neighbors were supportive until some point when I realized, we should probably get a real place. And I don't know if you remember down on South King Street, Maisie Hirano had her headquarters there. That's back where Long's was, right across from Old Stadium Park.
Yep.
And I would drive by there, and I'd look at that space, and I thought, that would be a really good place, because of all the drive-by, that'd be a really good place for a Super Geek Service Center.
Very good. And I know, Tim, we're going to get to you in a second, because I know you've got a good story, but for both of you, I mean, were you born Chief Geek? I mean, what's your background? How did you get into this business?
I grew up on the East Coast. My father's missing in action in Vietnam, so the government paid for my college education. That meant I could look at a map at the United States and choose which school I wanted to go to, and they would send me there.
Wow.
Yeah, so I decided to go to the other end of the country, to California, and I studied engineering and graduated, of course, and ended up working for Sony in Japan for 7 years.
Great technology company.
And it was perfect time. This was 88 to 95. That's when Sony was top of its game. We had the Walkman and the Handycam camera and Trinitron technology. Everything was perfect. We're buying Columbia Pictures. It was a perfect time to be working for a company like that. And at some point, I was ready to return to the United States. And I looked at the map again, and there was Hawaii. It wasn't too far away from Japan. I didn't want to be removed from my friends and colleagues. I wanted to stay in touch with them. And so I landed in Hawaii in 1995.
And as soon as you landed, the idea of Super Geeks popped into your head, or?
You know, the multimedia computer was just becoming the thing, and you could go into Home Depot and buy something, but it was tough figuring out how to put that thing together. And I remember Computer City was down here, remember? Right across from, I don't know what is there now, right down here in Kaka'ako. And I was standing there.
On Nimitz or Ala Moana or something, wasn't it?
I don't know, I was loitering around inside there as a customer, right? And this woman brought in a computer, true story, and put it down on the desk and said to the tech, you know, this is what my problem is. And the tech just kind of like scoffed at her. Yeah, just scoffed at her. And I thought, my gosh, here's this person, all she needs is help. She's willing to pay for it. And you have the, you know, the Saturday Night Live computer guy attitude, right? And made a whole skit out of it.
And probably an employee as opposed to an owner.
Yeah, he was definitely an employee. So I knew I could do a better job than that. And not at the $15 an hour where I had to do it myself. But I just hired people who were smarter than I, and that's how it started to grow.
And I guess with that, we can segue into Tim. Now, Tim, what's your background? How did you get in this, and how did you convince Jim or James to sell you the business?
Well, you know, I'm from here. I moved back to Hawaii in 2001. And when I moved back, previously to that, I had a retail background. And when I got here, a lot of people were asking for my help in the capacity of how do I grow online. And it's something that I've always been interested in doing. It's something that I kind of fiddled around with. And over time, I just learned on my own. So that's what really got me started in technology. Now, if you fast forward now to this past year, I think it was pretty simple. James called me up and we had a cup of coffee. And over the course of that cup of coffee, it turned out to be a really good idea to buy Super Geeks.
So in other words, he sold you.
He sold me.
Well,
I guess we kind of sold each other.
I told him, you know, I have a crazy idea. You should actually acquire Super Geeks. And he goes, you know, that's a really good idea. And that's how the conversation started, right?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
And so you're now with Super Geeks. You're basically the operations boss. You're kind of running things here locally. And you mentioned an e-commerce background or an interest. So is that what Super Geeks is moving towards, or?
Well, you know what, Hawaii has a terrific, Hawaii as a brand is magnificent. And what businesses don't realize here, especially the e-commerce ones, is that there's a world of opportunity, not just a state, not just a nation, but a world of opportunity. And with Hawaii's strong brand, it's really possible for someone to really, I guess, hockey stick their business in a way. And we can help them do that, just with the way that technology works and the way that we can start from, the way that Super Geeks can take someone from the beginning with the website creation and development all the way to the end, which is post-marketing.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've learned this on your own, but as far as your background, you said you grew up in Hawaii. In your background, you grew up and went to school. What high school did you go to?
I went to Kamehameha.
Kamehameha,
yeah.
all right.
Went off to the University of Southern California.
Super.
Studied overseas at King's College.
Oh, very good.
And prior to Super Geeks, I started up my own small digital PR firm. This is a few years ago. And what a lot of people don't know is James actually helped me kind of start it up. Super Geeks built my first website for me.
Very good.
Now, during the course of doing business there, I actually obtained enough capital to then buy Super Geeks. That's what really helped catapult me to where we are now.
Very good. So, you know, part of the message that we're communicating here is that, you know, two very diverse backgrounds, two very different, but somehow you have both, in your own way, become very successful, and now you are, I'll use the word partners in trying to make Super Geek successful here locally and internationally, globally, right?
Yeah, you know, excuse me, I'm still responsible for Super Geeks outside of Hawaii. We've got licensing agreements. There's one Super Geeks in Texas. Mm-hmm. So we'll continue to build that out. What's good about Tim is he is smarter than I am. And
He knows how to fix the
he's
machines,
younger
right?
than I am. And I think what's super critical about the company now is what happens next. So there was another buyer for Super Geeks who offered 20% higher full cash amount. And their intentions were different. So they had a bigger plan. They wanted to take another company into an IPO. They needed a corporation to kind of dovetail on. So there wasn't interest in growing and developing the Super Geeks business here locally. And so what I found in Tim was the eagerness and the drive to kind of like carry that torch and to take this thing, which, you know, I consider my baby, and to continue to grow it and develop it in a way that kind of sort of fits along the lines of what I would do. So the upside is over the next few months, there's this transition period. But Tim has had his hands on the steering wheel now for probably 4 or 5 months. And has been doing a great job.
Very good, very good. And I know you're both very involved in the community. I mean, I still see your articles popping up in the PBN, and I hear rumors that you're making presentations and speeches. So, you know, I guess you're still very active in the Hawaiian community here.
Yeah, this is my home. I share time between Honolulu and Las Vegas. I love technology, and I've been fortunate to have some speaking engagements, so I come back occasionally to do that.
Right.
I do have the article or column in Pacific Business News, and that appears once a month. So we live in a global world, right?
We do.
We just need Super Geek 1, right? So we can move around a lot more easily.
Right, well, that's something to work towards.
Right.
But Tim, I know James goes to a lot of different conferences, technology conferences here and there, and I know this because I see him writing about it all the time. Do you get to go to these as well?
You know, I've made a point to go to a few, and I have a few on my schedule next year. But the ones that to me are really important right now are things like VidCon. Really, the technologies that people are starting to embrace now are the ones that I mostly focus on attending.
Good. And so do you coordinate this? I mean, do you cover some and James covers others? I mean, is this something you guys chat about?
Well, the in-person events they're driven by the convenience of being able to attend. So it's not as if James will go to one and Tim will go to the other. But what happens in the geek community online, is a constant kind of sharing of information. So I may come across the tool, or Tim may come across a new solution, and we just kind of cross-pollinate that. The more that the group works together, whether they're part of the same company or part of another group, the more that they're able to kind of share that information, the stronger and smarter the entire group becomes. So in the geek community, there's this constant kind of back and forth of new things that are being discovered and what might be useful.
Well, and it's an ever-changing environment. I mean, I can't imagine how one person can keep up with it all. There has to be a division of efforts here.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, there are no silos of excellence, right? So, and even, you know, within the geek world, you know, we talk about technology, it's a very broad subject. But within that subject, there are many smaller areas that there are very specialized people who focus on those. And yeah, it's impossible to be intelligent on all areas.
Well, we've run out of time. We're going to take a short break here. We're going to be back in a minute. This is Reg Baker, Business in Hawaii, talking with Super Geeks and the 2 geek bosses that work there. And we'll be right back in a minute. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Leatham, and I'd like to invite you to come and watch my show every Wednesday at 3. I'm interested in a variety of issues that have to do with politics and our local business economy. And I'd like to bring on guests who like to talk about everything from technology to social media to what we can be doing to improve our environment. And so I'd like to invite you every Wednesday at 3 to stay and watch my show here with ThinkTech Hawaii. And I'll see you there.
Hi, my name's Cindy Matsuki, and I host the show High Growth with HTDC on ThinkTech Hawaii. This is the show where we talk about all things tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, and manufacturing, because there's so many things going on in Hawaii and more people should know about them. So this is the program that you can come and find out about all the things happening in Hawaii. And this show also airs on Olelo 54 along with ThinkTech Hawaii. And it broadcasts live every other Tuesday at 3 p.m. So don't forget, check out the show Tuesday, 3 p.m. every other week. High Growth with HTDC. Thanks.
Welcome back. This is Reg Baker, Business in Hawaii, and I'm here with Super Geeks, with James and with Tim. Tim, you just took over and you're getting your hands around this monster that James has created, and you're taking it in a direction that I think James has shared his vision on that. But the mechanics of Super Geeks, what does Super Geeks do?
You know, we have several divisions, and it's a really exciting time for Super Geeks in terms of how we're growing. And so the things that we're really excited about moving forward with are really the things that we're doing online. So web development encompasses a lot of things. And so outside of just web design, which is what most people know, we are actually doing now online optimization. So we're looking for keyword intents. So intents of what searchers are using to find the products and services they want. And we're helping businesses find those intents and optimize their sites to be pulled up for those intents. So if someone's looking for a divorce lawyer in Hawaii, hopefully not, they can find one. Or if someone's searching for the best,
a good CPA.
A good CPA, exactly.
In Hawaii.
In Hawaii.
Right.
That, and you'll be number one.
There you go.
So we're helping businesses get more business, and not just locally, but nationally and globally.
Very good.
Yeah, because the world has changed, right? The world used to be all about disruptive advertising, right? You try to gain the attention, and now it's what we call inbound marketing. And when you shop, you hop online, you start searching for things, and you want to be sure that your product or service is found when they're searching right then and there. And that's exactly the kind of service that Tim and Super Geeks offer, is connecting the product and service with the person who's actually hunting for it at that moment.
Well, and that aspect of the e-commerce is just one piece of e-commerce. There's a lot of other pieces. I mean, for example, once they find the product, how do they buy it?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's an art in itself. We talked about technology in general having many subdivisions, so that's what we call a conversion. So if someone walks into your store, brick and mortar store, you want to close the door and don't let them leave until they buy, right? And then after they buy, you want them to come back and buy even more.
Of course.
So this sales cycle is a very deep one, and getting them to the page as a warm prospect, warm lead, is first step. Making that conversion, whether it's a phone call, scheduling an appointment, or in this case, buying a product or a service, is the second step.
For those companies and for the audience that's listening, they have a website, maybe it's a good one, they've got some good traffic coming through, people are finding a product or a service that they want to purchase or might find out more about, but then it kind of stops there. There's got to be more to it. I mean, how do you close the deal using an e-commerce environment?
Well, in the case of if they're getting the traffic in the door and the people are on the site, but they're not following through with a purchase, it's going to go back to messaging. And the way that search works these days, it's all about messaging and branding. Strong messaging and branding and strong message mapping will lead to higher conversions. And that is a very key component of e-commerce these days.
Very good. And you help them with this closing process by having PayPal on there or other ways of being able to close the deal, collect money, get it into the bank. I mean, is that part of how you see e-commerce, or is that a different piece of the process?
It's definitely a part of the process. I mean, e-commerce is a very broad term, and within the scope of e-commerce, there are many, many, many different facets. Everything from the speed of a page, the type of payment gateway, to the type of security on your site. I mean, everything kind of has its place within e-commerce, and everything is actually important to raising up that, that not only click-through rate to your site, but that conversion or closing rate.
So what's neat about this digital world is we can get the metrics on it. And when you start to measure something, you can manage it. if you can't measure it, you can't be successful at it.
Spoken like a true financial guy.
So we can actually see what these habits are like. And in the old days, it was kind of seat of the pants, intuitive understanding. I've got this store, I'm not moving this particular product, why is it not selling? But with e-commerce and this digital world, we're actually able to get the analytics, see the numbers, and begin to understand and make quicker decisions. So in the old days where I might gain an intuitive understanding after a month or 6 weeks, with the analytics, I'm able to make those decisions much quicker in a day or a week. So this is a much smarter way of approaching business as we've normally done it.
Very good. Well, it's an exciting time. Now, I know back in the old days, and we may have moved away from this, but there used to be that break and fix work that used to be done, and then there was some networking and support and hardware and all that. Is that something you're moving away from, or is that still something that's in the inventory?
We still do it. So that's, you know, we're broken up into several kind of divisions, I would say. And it's the business IT and that repair work. It's something that we still definitely do for our community.
Okay.
Yeah, and the numbers are good. You know, so people still have computers, they still break, they still want to fix them. But
And me too, I got them.
yeah, bring them on down. All repairs are free for the next 30 seconds.
What a deal.
You don't know there. So the trajectory was 98, you know, that first 4 or 5 years or so was all about servers, workstations. That's what we were all concerned about. And then over the course of the last 10, 15 years, it's moved into software and data. So we still do the workstations, we still do the servers, we still do the management of the networks, we still do what's called break fix. Something's broken, we'll fix it. But we've had to evolve with the times, just like any other business has had to change over the last 10 years. And so our business model shifted more into, if you look at our revenues of growth, they're strongest in the software data type area.
Well, I guess that's the world we live in right now. You know, is that, you know, myself particularly, I'm overloaded with data and information. I got to make some sense out of it. It's hard.
You know, so the litmus test question, right? When you sit down with the business owner, you ask them, well, if you had to create another business that would compete against yours, you know, if you just stopped and thought for a moment, what kind of business would eat your lunch? What kind of business would kind of keep you awake at night so you can't sleep? Invariably, it's a web-based, software-driven version of what they're currently doing.
Very good. And you're taking the company in full steam ahead in this area.
That's right. That's right. That's,
Yeah, so he does all the hard labor and I get to do the speeches. I call that a deal.
Someday I want to grow up and be like you, James.
That's what I told him the other
Gotta be
week.
careful what you wish for.
But you've got some good staff. I mean, it's not just Tim. I mean, you've got some good people around you too, right?
That's right. We've got some great minds. So we've got
Awesome minds.
Yeah, we've got some incredible minds that work for us. People that are incredible at what they do, that are passionate about technology, and really that's who I look for, and that's who we look for. We want people that love what they do, that love technology, and that's really the most important thing. Other things can be taught.
Smart, friendly, and responsive. Right? Those are the three bases to cover. You got to be smart, you got to be friendly, and you got to be responsive.
Very good. And I would assume that, you know, well, smart, I guess, would cover the competency piece of it, the technology and whatnot. Good. All right. So we might want to write that down somewhere. Very good. So what's, I guess we're going to be coming up on a break here in a few minutes, but where do you see lies the greatest opportunity going ahead? I guess it's continuing to move in that e-commerce, that data area, or?
You know, I think so. I think the bigger picture is, what can we do as a company to really help small businesses or any business here really grow? You know, beyond just what we do, what can we do to actually make our community better? What can we do to make the businesses here better? And I think that's the question that we're trying to answer, and that's what we want to do in the future.
Very good. And I guess the question is going to be, how are you going to do that?
We're going to do it online.
Right? So I guess part of every business is different. I think that's a fair statement. And every business is going to have its own personality, its own strengths and weaknesses. And so part of the process needs to be going in and taking a look at this business and trying to figure out where the greatest improvements or impact can be made. Is that part of what you do?
Yeah, so not every customer is the same. So, if we look at that power curve, there are some who have regular and ongoing needs, and then there are some who may not have many needs at all. And so the first impulse of many business owners is try to get more customers. And I've been guilty of that. Let's expand even more than before. But the smarter approach is to look at the clients that you have now and touch them more often. So it's not, let's get more customers. It's rather, what products and services can we offer the clients that we currently have? And I think that's a fundamental shift. So the neat part about the recession is whenever there's chaos, right, there's opportunity. Mm-hmm. So what's happened over the last 6-8 years is it's kind of purged those companies that have had a tougher time. And so now we're coming out of the gates after many of these companies have managed to reduce their overhead, right? Because it's been a race to reduce the overhead through the recession.
Well,
right?
It's been survival.
So if your sales are flat or declining, you've got to reduce that overhead. Well, right? So what's happening now as the economy is improving globally, right? Don't listen to the news, right? Don't listen to the news. We're on the brink of really strong upward growth, not only here in the state of Hawaii, not only the country, but globally. And so it's the first company that aggressively takes action. The natural response is, after a long period of a downturn, is, well, let's just sit and wait. But you can do that. The other 1 or 2 or 3 clients in your industry or in your market space are going to be more aggressive about it. And when they are aggressive about it, they're not going to go back to the old way of adding more overhead. They're going to look at new ways of doing the thing that they've done in the past. And that means technology, right? So as opportunity begins to show up, they're not going to add more people unless they have to. They'd rather look at a smarter way of doing the same thing that they've always done.
Take a look at the efficiency or the productivity gains that can be had, or maybe even just changing the whole concept of how to do business and do it differently.
There's a tech solution in there, but you're absolutely right. You have to sit down with the business owner because one size does not fit all. It's a custom solution, and that's exactly the kind of service that Tim is able to provide. So you have to have an aptitude for business. You have to have an aptitude for technology. If you can have one foot in each area, then you're able to come up with a solution.
Right, well, and that's the balance you've got. You've got to actually be the designer of the system that meets the needs of the company. And in order to do that, you need to know what those needs are in pretty finite detail.
Yep.
And that's, to me, that's exciting.
Yep. I can give a quick example here. I won't say who, but we met with a client the other day. And really, when we were talking about building this very custom piece of technology for them to use for their entire office, for their entire company, we actually went down to the level of having them fill out what each and every employee does. How will technology better their experience at work? What will really help them? And taking all that information from everyone, from the ground floor all the way up to the top, we were able to then define what we can do to help them and help their business succeed.
Yes, and I think Tim and I are in agreement on this. It's the mission is higher touch. It's not world domination. It's not to McDonaldize, the tech support. This is not the direction that Tim is going. It's to create a higher touch kind of boutique approach where he can work with a handful of clients and do extraordinary, remarkable work.
Well, let's hold that thought. We got a break right now. We'll wrap that up and talk a little bit more about it. But this is Reg Baker. We're going to take a short break. You're watching Business in Hawaii, and we'll be back in about 60 seconds.
Aloha, I'm Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and I host Sustainable Hawaii every Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon. My guests offer insights on challenging economic and environmental issues facing our state and offer innovative solutions to increasing Hawaii's long-term sustainability. Recently, we've been focusing on sustainable land development, food, and energy security. If you have a project or issue you'd like to discuss on the show or would like to be a guest, please contact me at kirstenbturner@gmail.com and tune in live weekly or view the show at your convenience at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on ThinkTech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
Welcome back. This is Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker, and I'm here chatting with the two owners and founders of Super Geeks Hawaii, James and Tim. It's good to have you, and we were just getting into a little bit of a discussion on how this works for a company, and let's just take a hypothetical example. If there's a company out there that's kind of struggling with the technology piece of this and not sure how to move into the e-commerce, and they kind of have a gut feel that there's a better way, how do they approach this? They give you a call, you respond, and then what happens?
Then we start to learn about their business. So we ask them what their aspirations are. We've asked them what they've done in the past, why they think that things haven't worked for them, and where they think that their industry is going. So we kind of lay the groundwork down to kind of begin the next step of the conversation. And that's really where we come back and, after we learn about them, what can we do to help them out? So there's a pretty interesting, case study that we've done recently. And we went through this process. And they're pretty, maybe a medium-sized business in Hawaii. They have 3 or 4 offices. They've done okay in the past, but they've seen a downturn in their business. And it's not for lack of how their industry is doing, but it's more the fact that what their competitors started to do. And they want to know, how am I going to stay ahead of our competitors in the industry? And when we really learned what they wanted to do, they wanted to expand not only locally, but nationally. We went through an entire process of rebranding, both online and off, restructuring where they invested their monies in, their budget in, and making their dollars work harder for them. Now, we did this by taking away, the old antiquated ways that they were marketing themselves, and we invested it in measurable solutions online. So we did everything from shortening the name of their company to shortening the name of their website, their URL, making it easier for people to remember and type in. We looked at the intent of what their customers wanted from them. So we actually went and interviewed their customers, because the business always has a really different idea of what they are and what their customers actually think they are.
They're never in sync.
They're never in sync. They're never in sync. And really the magic is, if you know what your key customers, your best 5 or 10 customers want out of you, and you just replicate that, things they like the best about you, well, odds are is that you're going to have a pretty successful business. So that's what we did. We took what their best customers liked about them, and we did it. We made those solutions. We turned it online. We did the intent optimization for their site. We just redirected their marketing, and fast forward a few months, they're doing a lot better.
You don't need to disclose any names, but is this a product environment or is this a service environment?
This one's interesting. It's both.
Really?
It's both.
Okay.
It's a product and a service.
Very good. And how long does this process take, or in this case, how long did it take from beginning and the initial conversation to, and I know maybe in some respects it's never ending. It's a constant, tweaking that's going to take place. But for the viewers that are interested, how long does a process like this take before they start showing some good results?
It depends on the business and the industry, but it can be anywhere. The process itself can take up to a couple of months. It's not a quick fix. It's not a short process. In fact, if you're talking about winning the internet, it's really a long-term process. You're talking 6, 7, 8 months. But the good news is that once you're doing it right, the ROI, or the return on investment they're going to get, you can start to see it pretty quickly. And you'll be able to see the shift in how business goes pretty quickly. Now, there's generally an upfront spend, but you'll tell within the first probably 6 to 8 weeks that things are turning around. And those things tend to snowball or build up over time.
Right. And some of this, I would imagine, for lack of a better word, is maybe a trial and error process. I mean, you can try these keywords or this approach and get some results, but then if you change them and you try something else, you might get some different results. I mean, there is some, it's not an exact science. Some of it is a little trial and error. Is that a fair statement?
It's still, yes, there's a little bit of that. And more so 3 or 4 years ago, that would be, exactly correct. You'd be, kind of guessing. Now, if you go through all the processes and you actually go out and ask your best customers, you do, I guess, a customer intent survey.
Almost like a focus group.
Yeah.
What they used to call a focus group.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You do a very specialized, a very specific focus group of your best consumers, or your best clients. And if you can get that right, you can turn around things pretty quickly.
Very good.
Yeah, so there are definitely a handful of processes, disciplines that are required to get started, and those are consistent across industries. And then there's the looking at the metrics and understanding what's really happening, and then being able to modify assumptions along the way. So, yeah, there's kind of a structure to the approach, but there's definitely research that's involved in the process. And I would think it's good to say that the overall goal is to build as much autonomy into that particular client's company as possible.
What do you mean by that? Build the autonomy?
Well, the company needs to learn and grow too. So what the ideal scenario is that company or client begins to understand things better. Tim then is able to look at certain functions, features of services he's providing, and to coach or nurture that team to be able to do it in-house themselves.
Sounds almost like it's a strategy shift in a sense.
I think this is the fascinating part of technology. It used to be devoid. It used to be a different department, right? It used to be behind a door somewhere, and those were the tech guys, and they worked on the servers. But almost every facet of an organization now has some kind of tech component. So when Tim meets with a client and addresses their situation, that starting conversation is tech-based, but he has to and does pick up all those other areas too that are equally important, like marketing, for example, right? Operations.
Well, and getting the matrix that you're talking about to monitor and watch the results. I mean, you got to have the finance and accounting piece of that in there too to watch that. Very good. I guess in some respects then the owners of the company need to be fairly open-minded about where they want to go. I mean, being old school and having it done the old way may not always be the best way. And so they got to be a little open-minded to some of this, don't they?
That's right. I mean, and it can be a challenge sometimes. So in the case of the party I was talking about earlier, we were lucky to be working with a very open-minded proprietor. And he was open. Most people won't want to ever change the name of their business. We latch on to those things. But he was very open-minded. And luckily for us, he was. And good for him that his business took off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you put so much time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears in building that name. It's difficult to change the name sometimes, and expensive.
There's always going to be a cost. But what's important for business owners or even owners to remember is you're not going to lose a lot of equity in changing your name. And the reason is, if you have a specific set of a client base, you can always let them know that, hey, we're changing our name. But if your name attracts new and more, a larger group of customers, and you can still retain your old clients, well, you've done yourself a good service by going in that new direction.
Well, that's a good point. That could actually take you into second and third gear as far as sales growth and customer growth is to kind of shed some things that may be holding you back and make that name more appealing to a broader audience.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I notice a lot is a lot of small companies especially will have names that are 4 or 5 words long. Mm-hmm. And so and those names are generally, they're generic and they're hard for people to remember. But if you can find those short names, 2 words, or maybe 3 syllables, those are the names worth going after, and they're worth paying the money to obtain them if you can. Those are the kind of names that are memorable. It'll make you stick out from your competition. And that's really, those are some of the things that we talk about whenever we sit down and we meet with a client.
Does that, when people go in and do a Google or a Bing search or something, those shorter names pop up quicker? I mean, are they easier to find or easy to remember, certainly?
They're certainly easy to remember, and the thing that we need to remember is these search engines, they're built for people, for us. And so these search engines, they're all based upon how we search. In fact, search engines will generally, they know what we look at. They'll give us content based upon what we search. So it's important to remember that we're not always catering to the search engines, we're catering to people. So what do people want? What will people remember? What makes us stand out? What makes us different?
Well, now, both of you obviously have a lot of background experience. I know, James, you've done a lot of different things as well as Super Geeks. We've got a few minutes left in the show before we have to wrap up, but and I'm going to ask each of you this question. What type of advice would you offer to our audience? And a lot of members of our audience, just as background, are people that are in business, that are looking for ways of maybe improving their business, or people who are thinking about going into business. So you've got a diverse group out there, but is there some advice that you would like to offer that would be value add?
Well, for the ones who are current business owners, of course, have an open mind. And the proof is always in the pudding, right? So you look at the numbers and see if it's working or if it's not, and you can move on and make another decision. For those who are toying with the idea of entering the business world, it's a double thumbs up. The United States of America is a country based on business, and there are lots of benefits to being in business. One of them is freedom. So the freedom to control your schedule, you get to choose which 24 hours of the day you want to work, right? But here's the deal, right? Number one, don't quit your day job, right? Because cash is good, and you're able to work on your startup during lunchtime or before work or after work, not during the work period. Don't commingle your current work with your startup idea.
You don't want to jeopardize anything until you're ready to make the jump.
No, integrity is important. So, but you do have a lot of free time. So that lunchtime can be used to exploring these ideas. You got to focus on a niche, of course. The first impulse is to try to be everything to everyone, and that never works. You've got to do something remarkable, something that people want to talk about. So you could be in that niche, but if you're not doing something that creates a ruckus, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to sell it.
Right.
You're not going to be able to grow it.
Very good. We've got about a minute left.
I had more.
Yeah.
I was just getting started.
Well, it's along the same lines as what James said. A lot of businesses that are starting off, they try to take on more than they really should. You need to focus on a niche, Know what you're really good at and focus on that. If you do that, the odds of success are a lot higher. In terms of people that want to start up and even existing business owners, don't be afraid to invest in yourself, to invest in your business. A lot of times I think people are too conservative. And if you're too conservative and you take too long to think, things will pass you by.
That's right.
The opportunities will pass you by.
Well, and I think, and you touched on it, Tim, I think some people, they do have their strengths and their comfort zone, but, having a team around you to help you through this process is also valuable. And a team like Super Geeks or a team of other professionals that can help you go through this maze and reach your success target. But we ran out of time. I thank you both very much for being here. I enjoyed the talk.
Thank you for having us.
You betcha. And this is Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker every Thursday at 3 o'clock. We're here for about 45 minutes, and I sure hope you can make it next week. And I want to say thank you to our studio staff. They, as always, have done a great job. Thank you, and aloha.